speaking of tariffs, Trump is also willing to put tariffs on the not the music industry, the movie industry. Make sure you guys hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. I want to go over first to talk about how China is being affected by the tariffs, and then what is happening in the movie industry also.
Welcome back. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent with breaking news to investors yesterday here from the Milken Conference, saying that substantial progress on China trade talks could come in the coming few weeks. President Trump says he will not bring down tariffs to get China to the negotiating table, but notes that Beijing is going to have to make a deal because they need the U.S. consumer. A new report from the Wall Street Journal shows data needed to analyze China's economy is vanishing. Chinese officials no longer publishing data points like unemployment and land sales and foreign investments. Joining me now here at the Milken Institute, International Chairman, Senior Fellow and Advisor Curtis Chin. Curtis, you just made the point, you don't hide data when it's good data.
Absolutely. You know, it's really par for the course. It's not just this year, but in prior years, when things look bad, the data was not forthcoming, which makes it, this is all about investors here. I mean, it makes it tough for investors, and it's probably we're probably going to see less and less, again, foreign direct investment into China.
By the way, the data that we did see last week was painful. Manufacturing was down, exports were down. So the tariffs that President Trump has begun to institute are working, apparently.
Well, I think, we have to find what do we mean by working? And, in terms of, is, of course, the consequence on the people there. But the reality, indeed, across the world, President Trump is driving the agenda. And with your for or against tariffs, you cannot deny that it's led to discussions that hopefully will be the benefit, not just for Americans, but for other countries, and making sure it's a sustainable trading relationship between the U.S. and them.
So essentially what he's saying is this is something that had to happen a long time ago. It was supposed to happen a long time ago, but everybody kept kicking the ball down the road. We like to kick the can down the road because we don't actually want to deal with and address the issues that is happening in society and worldwide. We don't. And so what they're not telling you, and what I've been studying, and see, you're not going to actually see the real, because we have free speech and we have freedom of press. And so we are experiencing growth inside of the United States of America while also inspiring. I was talking to a guy early this morning, and he was helping me with some of my bags, and he said, Anton, what do you think that the people that create businesses inside of the United States of America, people that actually contribute, and it's so funny because he asked me questions every single morning. Anton, what do you think about this? Anton, I seen your show yesterday. Anton, this and that, and so on and so forth. He's the valet guy in my building. And so he was asking me a question, and he was saying, Anton, what do you think will be the benefit of starting a business right now? I said, if it's something that's in demand and something that actually pushes out American products that allow for you to compete against other people and you market it effectively, you'll become a millionaire, 100%. Is no way, in my opinion, that in this economy that we're inspired to create our own businesses and be sustainable amongst each other. Listen, you don't even have to create a whole store. You don't have to create a boutique. You need to come up with one product. One product. I seen a guy that already was in I don't know what he messes with cowhide, and he does makes buckles, and he makes brass pieces and all of this stuff. And so he used to do like custom purses or custom work when people would commission him to do it. Well, prior to Trump getting in office, they wound up pivoting over into creating a belt company. And so he used the highest quality materials. He actually markets his product and shows what the process is. He invested in himself. And so now he sells standard belts, but then he allows for people to pick and customize what size that they want. And then he guarantees, since it's an American-made product, what products from here that it's going to last you a lifetime. And he gave a lifetime guarantee for the belt itself, which allows for you to be able to replace it if anything ever happens. Booming. Booming. Absolutely booming, killing it on all fronts. And he's charging a premium for it because it's a really, really great quality product, but he's learned how to market it effectively. What this is supposed to also do is make us more self-reliant and interdependent on each other. The one thing that I hated that happened, that a lot of people wasn't just, being of a certain age, you can kind of see things, right? The one thing that I hated that happened over the last 20 to 30 years is that you guys let big box stores destroy your neighborhoods. You did. You let the Walmarts come in. You let the big old grocery stores come in. Back in the day, it used to be, because somebody said, I asked somebody if they had meal prepped, and they said, no, I just ate leftovers or whatever. Back in the day, it used to be where you bought what you needed and you lived, work, and played all in the same area. And everybody supported everybody. It was one guy in the neighborhood, and he was a butcher. And it was another guy that was in the neighborhood. He did all of the bread and he did the pastries. There was another person that was in the neighborhood, and they basically made all of the milk deliveries. And so you had a whole lot of small businesses because America was more innovative, and you filled the need inside of your neighborhood or your community, and it allowed for you to be able to raise your children on. You had a decent salary. You hired other people. You hired other young people or teenagers or people that was a part of the community, and you were able to self-sustain. But nowadays, the only thing that we care about is massive deep freezers inside of our basements and making sure that we get bulk stuff, bulk goods. It broke the neighborhood. It broke small businesses. It broke communities. And then what we use, or what they use, the big box stores, because all y'all did was mimic the big box stores. What they used was products that was imported from China, and because they killed small businesses that we were willing to pay a premium, we walked more, we went over to these places. Mother made meals every single day, and she made it based off of whatever she needed. She would send you to the store and give you a piece of paper and say, hey, get these ingredients. You went, you got those ingredients. She made meals for the whole day for the whole family. The dad came home from work, and y'all had dinner, and y'all operated as a family, and people actually dressed up to go to baseball games. It was more interconnected. Now, they've basically killed off your small businesses, made you self-reliant on products that come in from out of the country, and now you're complaining because you're addicted to it, and it's like a dope fiend. You like a dope fiend. You're like a dope fiend. You know what killed the milkman? The milkman? The big box stores. They used to fight Walmarts and different big box stores from coming into their neighborhoods. Now what y'all say? I want to get a job at Costco. Now you looking to get a job at Costco. I've seen teachers and people quit their jobs to go and get a job at Costco. Crazy. Grandma was a part of the teacher. She ran the teacher program. Mama was a stay-at-home mom until all of her kids was out of the house, and then she became a teacher also. Daddy was making sure that he took care of everything, and he had his own small business. Big box stores came in, killed everything, and now y'all interdependent on it, and y'all complaining because y'all can't get Chinese products no more. And China is suffering. They have state-ran, country-ran media, so they're limiting the amount of information that's coming out. But the businesses are suffering bad. They saying that people are going out of business. Things are shutting down. Famine is starting to set in because the workers that was a part of these factories, they're not making no money no more. So the people are suffering. The difference is that we're just basically saying, oh, wait a minute. We didn't need to be that much of a consumer. We were overbuying. Oh, they didn't need Pop-Tarts. That was bad for you. Oh, you don't need Gushers and Fruit Loops and Fruit of the Looms and all of this stuff. Wait a minute. We don't really need all of this stuff. What is it that we really need from these people again? Okay. All right. I got you.
You know, today, knowing that you've got a lack of data, how would you assess the Chinese economy?
Not well. I think that's the bottom line. We're seeing reports before the data vanished.
Right.
Again, about job losses. You know, China is all about stability.
They crash.
And so that government needs to think through, what do? You know, when products are not being purchased, when there's no jobs for the people. You know, China has protests. Sometimes we don't hear about them so much. And what they worry about most are protests from workers, not students, but it's about workers.
The last thing Xi Jinping wants to see are thousands of people in the streets like Tiananmen Square.
Well, I think probably no one wants, violence and protests. But clearly, I would hope that Xi Jinping, as the rest of the world, really wants a better life for Chinese people, too. Really, the Chinese are often the victims when things like this happen and things disappear.
So how does that happen? I mean, there's this massive gap, right? The wealth gap.
Yeah, clearly in China, not just in China, in many parts of Asia, there's growing inequality. You know, clearly China needs to rebalance its economy. They've talked many years about increasing domestic consumption, and so that things aren't just driven by real estate, by exports. You know, the fear now, I'm based with Milken in Asia, and the fear now often in large parts of Asia isn't so much just the direct consequences of tariffs, but the indirect impacts if that leads to China flooding the market with inexpensive goods that might have otherwise gone to the United States or Europe.
Right, and President Trump is well aware of that.
Absolutely.
By the way, now the president is set to go to the Middle East next week. He's visiting Saudi Arabia. He's going to Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. You are just back from Saudi Arabia, right? You also have an op-ed for Fortune. You're questioning whether or not Saudi Arabia is the next China or India. Tell me about your trip and what you're expecting from President Trump in the Mideast.
Sure. I mean, I'd say what a blessing that I was able to go to Saudi Arabia, encourage people to go to. You know, the Saudis have a significant presence here at Milken Institute, not just this year and prior years. Clearly, if I were to sum it up with a headline, this is a kingdom on the move. And so blessed to be there, had the chance to do everything from try out their new subway system, really the longest, like almost robot-driven subway system in the world, but also a chance to meet everyday people. And again, I had some preconceptions.
What you know about the China Observer? What y'all know about the China Observer channel? They do show it. They leaking footage of what's really going on over in China, and people are crashing out over tariffs. Trump knew exactly what he was doing. And now the Chinese are looking to come to the table. I seen that Mark Carney is over in the White House, and we're going to talk about that later tomorrow. But I see Mark Carney is trying to bend the knee and trying to figure out getting a deal with the Trump administration now that he's been elected prime minister over there in Canada. But we'll see what happens.
Force, some clearly have changed now that I've been there. And so on Fortune, I and a co-author posed that question. Is Saudi Arabia the next China or India, this Asian nations that really going to power the world and power imaginations? In reality, the answer is somewhat no. It's a country, it's a kingdom of like 33 million people. But in another way, the answer is yes, this is a nation with the ambition of a China or an India. And how great that the United States and Saudi Arabia have this partnership as demonstrated by President Trump's upcoming visit to the kingdom.
So, yeah, man, the tariffs is continuing to happen over there in China. Lots happening, and the businesses are crashing out. And maybe y'all go over to the China Observer and pull some footage for you guys so that you guys can actually see it for yourself. Make sure you hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications.